First of all, I want to apologize for being late, but we are opening up another community prosecutor's office, and so I was just leaving that. But my name is Paul Howard, and today we want to announce the conviction of Matthew Moore. Mr. Moore was being tried principally for rape, aggravated sodomy, false imprisonment, impersonating, excuse me, you guys might want to configure your, they have just fallen off.
Is mine falling on you too?
Yeah.
Is mine falling over on you? It is.
Yeah.
Is this yours right here? I don't know what to do about it. Mr. Howard, where can I put this? Is that, if I stick it there, is that okay? Okay. I'm not sure if mine is going to stay propped up right there. All right, let's see if that works. Is that okay?
That's okay? Again, good evening. We wanted to announce the conviction of Matthew Moore. Mr. Moore entered a guilty plea on this morning after 3 days of trial. Mr. Moore had been charged with rape, aggravated sodomy, false imprisonment, impersonating an officer, aggravated sexual battery, and aggravated assault in cases involving two Fulton County women who were brutally raped in Sandy Springs. One of the incidents occurred in 2010. Mr. Moore identified himself as a police officer. He flashed a badge and a firearm and pepper spray. And he proceeded to rape a woman at a hotel in Sandy Springs. The victim called 911, and where she was taken to a hospital and a sexual assault exam was performed. And part of the evidence that was collected in that case was a napkin. That took place in 2010. Some 7 years later, Moore, he contacted another woman through an advertisement, and once they met at the Hawthorne Suites in Sandy Springs, again, Moore brandished a knife and a firearm, which he pointed at the victim, and then he proceeded to remove the victim's clothing, and he then tied her up, and he positioned his telephone so that he could record what he was doing at that time. And he proceeded to brutally rape her for more than about 40 minutes. Once he finished this assault, he then attempted to use an object to continue his rape upon this victim. She then managed to escape, ran out into a hallway where she was able to let 3 other gentlemen know that she was being assaulted. Mr. Moore then pointed his weapon at those individuals, managed to retrieve his telephone, and he was able to leave Fulton County and Sandy Springs at that time. So in 2017, some a year and a half later, we received, and along with the Sandy Springs police, a DNA hit. And the DNA hit not only involved the 2 women from Sandy Springs, but it also involved an incident that occurred in 2008 in Homewood, Alabama, another incident that occurred in Cobb County in 2010, as well as the 2010 and the 2017 incidents that took place in Fulton County. One of the things that was found in the 2010 incident was a pair of handcuffs, and the pair of handcuffs were handcuffs from the institution where Moore worked. And as it turns out, he was employed as a correctional officer in Alabama. At the time that he was arrested, the police were able to find a number of items in his possession, which included the zip ties that were used to tie the victims, pantyhose, computers, cell phones, and sex toys. And one of the things that Moore had in his possession was the same videotape that he had made in Fulton County in 2017, and he still had it in his possession. I want to thank the Sandy Springs Police Department, who really did an outstanding job of putting this case together. It's without them, there's no doubt that that Mr. Moore would have continued to rape women apparently all over the Southeast. And one of the reasons that we are here to make this announcement is that we believe that in the Fulton County area and that in Sandy Springs, that there are probably many other women that Mr. Moore might have assaulted. And if those women are listening to this broadcast, we would certainly ask them to contact the DA's office or to contact the Sandy Springs Police Department, because what we have found is that the victims that we have interviewed and talked to in the process of this trial, they have been greatly disturbed by what Mr. Moore has done, and we believe that those women probably need some extensive psychological treatment, and that is one of the reasons that we would like for them to come forward. We have an excerpt of the video that Mr. Moore made when he raped one of the Fulton County victims, and of course, we have deleted the scenes which depict the body and the face of the victim. And we have, however, we've preserved the part of the video where you can clearly hear the victim screaming for help while Mr. Moore is sexually assaulting that victim. And if you played it just now. In court today, the victim of this assault testified, and immediately after this video was played, Moore decided to enter a guilty plea. And the plea that he received today was the judge sentenced him to life on probation plus 30 years. I have with me Sergeant Johnson from the Sandy Springs Police Department. Come forward.
Good afternoon. Do you have any questions or?
Which rape was that, the
2015.
2015?
Can any of you just speak to the courage it took for both women to come forward and speak? Just so I'm clear, did both victims testify?
Yes.
So can if any of you could just speak to the courage it took for these women to speak so candidly about something that's so profoundly disturbing to recount to a police officer, much less to a jury, and what it meant in terms of how this all ended with his guilty plea?
I think it takes an extreme amount of courage. You know, the 2010 case and the 2015 case, these were both at the time 2 years old and almost 10 years old. And to come forward and to be able to speak about those acts is an extreme amount of courage, and then show up and come to court and tell their peers what happened to them. But they did that because they wanted to protect other women that they knew if they didn't, Mr. Moore would continue to hurt.
How many sexual assault victims are there, do you think?
5. Well, 5 that we were,
5 that you know of?
that were involved in this case, but we do believe there are more.
I'm sorry, 5 in this case?
There was 5 in total of this case. We had 2 in Alabama, 1 in Cobb, and then 2 in Sandy Springs.
Do you know whether or not, can you tell us how long would it take, if there are other cases like this out there, would we know by now that the DNA hit had come back, or?
I don't know if we'd be able to speak to that, if there's other outstanding kits in other states or.
Okay, so it's possible DNA is out there, but maybe hasn't made it to the system. That's kind of what I was trying to.
Correct.
Okay, all right. So we don't know how far back this man's sexual predation has gone.
Yes, ma'am.
But we know of at least 5 or 6 women.
And one of the unique things about this case, the women, they were contacted by Moore through Backstage. They were contacted through a website. And so what that said to them is they were very reluctant to come forward, because what they felt is once that circumstance was known, that the police would not believe them and nothing would happen. So one of the reasons we're here today is we believe that there are probably many women who once assaulted, they never reported it to the police at all, because what they felt is they might feel that the police and the prosecutors in the court wouldn't do anything. So after Mr. Moore entered the plea today, one of the things that the victim said to the court and the victim said to us is, thank you. Thank you for simply listening to my complaint. And again, we hope that if you were assaulted by this defendant, you didn't report it, that does not mean that you cannot come forward now.
Just to be clear, a gun was used in both and a knife was used in the 2015 case?
Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Which case was it where the handcuffs were found?
2015.
Did anybody, can someone describe how the plea came about? I mean, was this the case where Moore looked at the jury looking at this video and suddenly decided to give up the ghost, or what?
We believe that's what happened. You know, this was our 3rd day of trial. We had already presented the first victim, and he seemed to be confident still that the jurors would acquit him. But after the second victim testified and the videotape was played, as I understand it, several of the jurors openly wept when they heard and saw what was on the videotape. And after that, he conferred with his attorney, and he pled to the entire indictment.
Did he make any statements in court? Did he apologize to his victims, or?
He did not. He did not.
What time was he looking at if he hadn't pleaded guilty?
Well, if he had not pled guilty, the maximum sentence for a rape charge would have been life in prison. But he decided to end the trial early, and I believe that probably had a lot to do with the judge's determination. In fact, the judge indicated to him in open court, once the tape was played, she asked, do you still wish to continue this trial?
That was like with
So the
final
sentence,
sentence.
the final sentence was 30 years with life on probation.
Okay, 30 years in custody, life.
That's correct.
What can you say again to the victims? Because I know that some, if not all of the victims, had advertised erotic massages or whatever on Backpage or different places and might feel a couple of different things about coming forward. What can you tell victims, either Mr. Howard or Detective, about what their fear level might be from this predator as well as from people in law enforcement?
Well, I can tell you what we say to people all the time. If you're meeting someone and that person is a stranger, you need to be really careful. You need to be really careful. We know that people do this, but I would say to them that you really need to be careful. But if you are raped or if there's some kind of assault, that does not mean that that defendant gets an opportunity to simply walk away. So what we ask is that you call the police department. The police are going to listen to you. This is nothing new for law enforcement. It's nothing new for the prosecutors. And we don't want people to get the impression that they don't have anyone to turn to. One of the awful things that we see is that some of the victims express to us this hopelessness after they've been assaulted, that nothing will be done. And we're here today to say that we will do something if you come in and make a report.
What makes authorities certain that there are more victims out there?
Well, when you look at the demeanor of this defendant, we were surprised that he had let this trial continue to this point. And then after the first witness on the first day, he still was very confident, almost cocky, and it kind of gave you the impression that this was the sort of predator that if he was released today, he would continue to do the same thing. So it's hard to believe that these are the only victims, the 2 women from Fulton County and the 3 women from other areas of the community.
Do you guys know if he's going to face any other trials or?
So he's facing charges in Cobb County and in Alabama as well.
Do you know if those other cases in Cobb, Alabama also involve like a back page or something like that?
They do.
Yeah.
Do you think that he picked his victims like that on purpose because he thought there wouldn't be an outcry? Can you talk about that a little bit?
I think he picked them because he believed that he could control them because of what they were doing, and that they didn't matter, but they did, and that's why we're here today.
Did he impersonate an officer in both cases, or was there just the one time when he showed the badge and the?
He did it in 2
In
cases.
both of them. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Officer Johnson, what's your first name?
William,
Your rank?
Sergeant.
And we would ask, because sometimes the victims won't call the police department, they won't call the DA's office, but they will call the news media. And so if you get a call, we would really appreciate it if you would let us know about it. All right? Thank you all.
Johnson.
Johnson.